So, just why did the Beatles mean so much to a black British guy born in the blitzed East End London of the 1950s? I mean, if you want to get tribal about it, there was lots of black music to choose from, so why did these four skinny white guys from Liverpool mean so much? Even my kids with their rap, dance, reggae, soul, neo-soul treat my obsession with a little suspicion. My son describes pop music as nursery rhymes for adults, and he has a point. But everything is context, context, context. I'm not going to argue about the quality of the music, that one pop group's better than another. That's a quagmire I'll never get out of. For me, it was much more than the music. The music was the cherry on the cake. For me, before the Beatles, the world only had three colours: black, white and grey. After the Beatles, the world became colour and stayed so. For me, before the Beatles, entertainment targeting my demographic, the working class, with a few notable exceptions, was patronising crap. When the Beatles arrived, mainstream entertainment became intelligent, ambitious and aspirational. After the Beatles broke up, again with a few notable exceptions, entertainment defaulted to patronising crap for the masses once more. For as Freud said, it's not the thing in itself, it's what the thing represents and your emotional state when you first encountered it. So, let's look at context. Economics, politics, religion and fashion. Right, first, the Beatles and economics. All four Beatles were born during the Second World War, two as the German bombers blitzed the Liverpool docks. Britain had done the right thing. The first country to say to the Nazis, enough already, come on if you think you're hard. Consequently, they've been fighting the longest and they've been left in ruins. As I played in the craters of the East End of London in the 1950s, you would be hard pressed to believe Great Britain had actually won the war. The UK was broke and in debt. Our special relationship with America was that of credit card diplomacy. Their Marshall Plan loans bailed us out. We didn't make the last payment until the 29th of December 2006. Can you believe that? No wonder the world was black, white and grey. The UK needed labour quickly, and it had to be plentiful and it had to be cheap. This is where my parents came in. On the 22nd of June 1948, on a misty morning in Tilbury Docks, an ex-German troop ship, the Empire Windrush, steamed up the Thames, bringing 500 settlers from Kingston, Jamaica. Politics and the Beatles. The UK assumed that the Empire would be up and running again in no time at all, but in its weakened state it couldn't hold on to the jewel in the crown, India, which jumped ship in 1947. This triggered a domino effect spreading across all the other colonised countries who also sued for independence. Just as they thought things couldn't get any worse, along comes the Suez Crisis in 1956. Egypt's President Nasser decided to nationalise the British-built canal that just happened to run through his country but controlled 2/3 of the oil used in Europe. The Brits decided to retake the Suez Canal by force. If you're into the cock-up theory of history rather than conspiracies, this is the one to study. It reads like a rejected carry-on script without the sex. Don't worry, the sex is coming. When the Americans got wind that the Brits were planning to retake the Suez by force, they worried this could make an already unpredictable region even more volatile and ripe for those commie Russians to swoop in. The Americans, in no uncertain terms, told us to sling our hooks. Okay, we've missed a couple of payments, but what about the special relationship? So now it was official. Things were never going to go back to the pre-war status quo. There was a new world order predicated on a Cold War. But surely we could trust the British upper classes to keep a stiff British upper lip. Actually, they couldn't even keep their trousers on. In 1961, Harold Macmillan's Secretary of State for War, John Profumo, was discovered in Ugandan affairs with Christine Keeler, a 19-year-old would-be model. Turns out Christine was also in deep conversation with a Jamaican gangster and a Russian spy. Security! Have you seen Christine Keeler? I would have given her a royal pardon. Actually, I wouldn't have, because my wife might be watching this. So where are the Beatles? You said this was about the Beatles. Well, it's 1961. They've just been playing some dingy clubs in Hamburg, Germany. Now they're playing a dingy club in Liverpool, the Cavern Club. As young men, what we've just discussed would mean very little to them. They're just trying to get laid, get gigs and a record contract. But to become icons, the economic, the political, religious and fashion conditions must be just right. They're not to know it, but in 2 years they're going to be more recognisable than the Queen and the President. People will recognise them just by their silhouettes, their first names, one chord and one word repeated 3 times. And of far less importance, what about me? Being the only black child in my class in infant school was not as onerous as people assumed, but still there was something missing, something was not quite right. What was it? The Beatles may only have been partially aware of the scandal that was the Cambridge Five. 5 Cambridge University graduates who were among the most privileged people in British society. Among them was Donald Maclean, Guy Burgess and the Queen's personal art historian Sir Anthony Blunt. They'd all been spying for the Russians since the 1930s. Stalin loved these 5 traitors more than he loved his own children. Meanwhile, the British working classes inhabited a much more derelict and parallel zone. Gruesome factory jobs, broken down houses containing several families but no bathroom. The British white working classes started to communicate with the American black working classes by telepathy. Merchant seamen brought race records into the freshly bombed Liverpool docks from the States. Race records was a euphemism for records made by black people which radio stations on both sides of the pond seldom played. These records were bartered like contraband drugs. They were such a contrast to the bow-tied singers at the London Palladium pretending to be drawing room entertainers for the aristocracy. This brings us to our third and penultimate demographic, religion. On paper, the British were Church of England, but the first census in 1801, people were surprised at just how secular British society was. Consequently, you could argue that this is the reason why British society was quite welcoming of newcomers bringing their own religions with them, but also, in some respects, there was a kind of vacuum. And our last demographic, fashion. Fashion was for the upper classes. This was the strange stuff that came down Paris runways, which was then distributed by Hollywood stylists who were insecure in their own New World tastes. Then a new human species arrived, the teenager. In America it was Elvis Presley and James Dean. In the UK it was the Teddy Boys, who strangely adopted the clothes of their Edwardian grandfathers. There was great black music. Even in my infancy I knew about Louis Armstrong, Ella Fitzgerald, Sarah Vaughan, Frank Sinatra. Talented beyond belief, but they looked and sounded like my mum and dad. And how was the music distributed in the UK in the 1950s and 60s? There was only one source, the BBC, that rest home for ex-public school boys. They had a taste for the pallid and the safe. They even banned Doris Day. Yes, that Doris Day, with her record Move Over Darling. So we had the black and white minstrel show, Cliff Richard, an Elvis Presley clone, who after a brief moment of glory with a record called Move It, settled down to sing about being a bachelor boy and going on a summer holiday, while Tommy Steele sung about a little white bull. Mummy, why are these people torturing me? What's so special about you, Michael? Them torturing everybody. That doesn't make me feel any better, Mum. So when the Beatles came along, they represented authenticity. They didn't try to hide their Liverpudlian accents. They didn't change their name. When Ringo was asked if he'd ever read Shakespeare, he answered, only in comic book form. Then I was taken to see the Beatles film A Hard Day's Night in 1964, which was wonderful. In 1965, I was taken to see Help, which was terrible. In fact, the only good thing about that film was it was part of a double feature a film called She Who Must Be Obeyed, and I saw breasts for the first time, naked breasts. What a great day. But in the middle of Help, John Lennon and the boys sat down to sing the Dylan-esque You've Got to Hide Your Love Away. And at that moment, the drab four, economics, politics, religion, and fashion, became the Fab Four. Let there be colour, let there be light. And in that moment, I knew exactly what I wanted to be. I wanted to be authentic. Yes, I failed, but I had an ambition. I also knew I wanted to write. Yes, I failed, but I had an ambition. For me, the Beatles just changed everything. And then they changed society. It was okay to be an actor with a Cockney accent and wear glasses. It was okay to be a model that didn't come from the aristocracy. In this new spectrum of light, I felt I had a place. The Beatles, I'll be forever a black Beatle. Thank you, boys.